G'day everyone, Chris Farhi here. I'm the new head of Insights Data and Consulting at Bayleys. So the situation in brief is that on the 19th of October, the government came out and said that they're cutting red tape in order to improve housing supply. And so as part of this, they've dropped this bill, and I'll just check my notes. It's called the Resource Management Enabling Housing Supply and Other Matters Amendment Bill. So a key part of this is that they'll be requiring councils within Tier 1 urban environments to adopt medium density residential standards. So just to talk this through, so the Tier 1 councils are those located within Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga, Wellington and Christchurch. And so this new piece of legislation requires councils in those locations to notify a change to their district plan by August 2022. The change is so that the district plan permits development of 3 dwellings of up to 3 stories on sites, providing they comply with a series of development controls. And so I'll flash the development controls up now, and what you'll see is that they're a cryptic set of things like setbacks and outdoor spaces. The government believes that these changes will allow the market to deliver between 48,000 and 105,000 more new homes over the next 5 to 8 years. So there's obviously a lot to take in, right? But here's a couple of things that we do know, particularly if you've got this question around, does this impact my property? And so this is obviously an emerging issue, but what we do know so far is that it only impacts properties in those Tier 1 urban environments. So that's Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga, Wellington, Christchurch, although the legislation has put in like a future proofing that they can expand it to a series of like secondary cities if housing issues develop in those locations. The next thing is that councils will be notifying these changes by August 2022, and so that means that it's in this sort of short enough time horizon that it's actually relevant right now. And so in terms of that question about does it impact all sites, one of the things is that development of the property would need to comply with these development standards, which I'll flash up again, and as you can see they're reasonably cryptic, and the trouble is it's not as simple as just looking at the land area and being able to say, oh cool, my property is big enough that it's going to work. But generally what we would say is that smaller sites it's going to be difficult, but larger sites should have that potential. But at first glance it also looks like you'd need to get some professional advice before you could sort of hand on heart say that it's going to work for your property. In addition to the development standards, there may also be things that impact the zoning of a specific property that might restrict development, and those could be things like heritage controls or special character controls. Finally, the financial viability will also vary from site to site, and so this will mean that it will be more sensible to develop some sites than it would to develop others. The next big question is, what does this all mean for house prices? And so this is obviously an emerging issue with a reasonable amount of uncertainty, but our working theory at the moment is that properties that qualify under this policy for higher levels of development, we generally expect the prices for those to have a bit of a boost over time. And then the next question is, what does it mean long term, right? And I guess the government set out this policy in order to increase housing supply, which should in theory dampen the pressures on house prices. But what we've also seen is that despite similar measures being taken over time, the market continues to grow and house prices are as strong as ever. Just using Auckland as a reference point, so the Auckland Unitary Plan was notified several years ago, and as part of that there were several zones that provided higher levels of development intensity, things like the terrace house and apartment building zone or the mixed housing urban zone. And the interesting thing is that the changes that are put through in this piece of legislation are actually pretty similar to the mixed housing urban zone that's already in Auckland. And so what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the prices for properties with those zonings has actually boosted up quite a bit as developers hunt down those properties in order to take development to respond to the really strong housing market. So in terms of next steps, the bill's still being consulted on, so there's a little bit of uncertainty, but I think everyone's pretty confident that it will get pushed through. From our perspective, we're working behind the scenes with a bunch of different industry experts to get a better understanding of what this all means, with a particular goal of trying to simplify down our understanding so that we can share that with everyone in the market so that everyone has a better sense of what it actually means for their properties.